Okay, this is Eric Hunger for the Front Row Report. Today I have the very distinct pleasure to be sitting here with Mr. John Connolly from Sevendust. Pleasure to be here with you.
Good to be here.
Let's start off. Let's talk about the new album, the acoustic album, Time Travelers and Bonfires. What inspired it? Is it like a sequel of sorts to Southside Double Wide, or you just felt the urge to do some acoustic?
You know, I think it was, in some ways, yeah, you could look at it as a sequel. I think the Southside thing was just such a surprise on how well it was received.
Oh, you guys are one of the heaviest acoustic bands I've ever seen. It's amazing how you come across.
Right. The funny thing about that whole record, it was just a promotional tour for the Seasons album. We wanted to go out and do like a, we had a whole bunch of video footage. It was an evening with, but it was basically more like a meet and greet hang. We'd answer questions and stuff like that. And, the more we were talking about it, the more our agent was kind of like, well, you guys should play. And we were like, the last thing we want to do is go on tour before we're on tour,
Right. That
kind of defeats the purpose. But we had done like the going to the radio station acoustic thing a handful of times. And we were like, well, why don't we do that? We could do a short set, 30, 40-minute set.
Right.
Do it acoustic and do all the rest of it and have be something completely different from what the fans had seen before. So the intention was just to do that as a way to promote the upcoming record. And as the tour progressed, there were only 18 shows on the tour, but as it progressed and it got longer and longer, the set became longer and longer too, because people would yell something from out in the crowd and we'd start playing it, whether it be Slayer or Prince or us.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen some of the cover medleys you guys are throwing out
So
there.
we were just kind of having fun with it once we started to relax, and by the end of the tour we were doing like almost a 90-minute set every night.
Wow.
And we were lucky enough to catch it on DVD, that one show in Athens. And ever since we did that, we realized, okay, our fans are going to be receptive to doing this for real if we ever really wanted to do it, And for 11 years, we kept saying, one of these days we're going to get around to going in there, but we wanted to do new music.
Right.
We wanted to...
The 6 new tracks on there are amazing.
Oh, thank you very much, man. It was important for us to do a revisit of some of the older songs, but we also wanted to put some new stuff on there too, so it wasn't just a different version of what we had done with Southside in the studio. We wanted to give the fans something a little bit different.
The reimaginings are fantastic.
Oh, it's cool, man.
Yeah, I love it. It's absolutely got to be one of my favorite acoustic albums as
nice,
of now.
Man. Thank you. And the funny thing about it is, it's like, even though it's acoustic. It's acoustic based. We still have our programming element that we've always had. We just, instead of treating it the heavy way, we said, okay, obviously we're going to layer more strings and more things that are, conducive to that kind of an environment, But for us, it was just natural. It was like, all right, we keep everything kind of the way we normally do it, but we just take the acoustic approach, and it was cool. It was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, it was well received. I mean, debuted really high, like 1900. And wasn't it number one on the Hard Rock?
It was number one on the Hard Rock too.
Isn't that funny for an acoustic album?
Right,
number one on the Hard Rock.
A record that doesn't really. It's not a real album. It's kind of a novelty record.
But it's a tribute to you guys' crossover appeal. You're someone who can play a little club and then a festival, and it can go from acoustic to a hardcore electric set, back and forth. You guys do it seamlessly.
Well, you're always kind of rolling the dice, hoping that it's going to work. Because when we did the Southside thing, you got to remember, it was a novelty then, so it wasn't supposed to be, we're leaning on this and we're going to weigh our career on it. But it's kind of nice to know that, 20 years into this, if we still want to do this when we're 60 or 70 years old, then we might not have to worry about trampolines and things like that. I think for us, we were so surprised by the fact that we knew our fans would get it and appreciate it, but we didn't know how much they were going to appreciate it. In some ways, a lot of our fans actually, especially at our age now, have been around for the long haul, they're like, man, we love the heavy stuff, but we're so sick and tired of standing there in the pit. We really just want to stand in front of you guys and sing the songs as loud as we can. And they got a chance to do it on this tour. It was still lots of energy and lots of activity, but it was done in a more acoustic kind of way, But it's a nice gear to have, it's nice to know that we can do that. It's, we've always had that element in our band. I think as we progress and as we get a little bit older, maybe we refine it a little bit more, but, it's always been something that's been in there. And, I was telling someone earlier today, because they were asking, is it hard to do a transition from an electric song to an acoustic song and vice versa? 90% of the stuff that ends up on a Sevendust record started on a couch in the living room with an acoustic guitar anyways, before it ever got you know, you ever sit down with Pro Tools and electric and effects, usually it just starts out with a basic riff, just sitting there on the couch. So sometimes it's pretty easy. You know, you just kind of remember where it started and take steps back towards it, you know. But for us, it was just a blast to do.
So there's no distinct way that you guys go about the songwriting process. You just kind of sit in a room and start riffing off of one another?
Well, that's what we did when we first started. You know, everyone would bring in demos and things like that, but most of the cool stuff and most of the songs that, you know, stand the test of time were songs that everybody had a piece of, you know, a say in. We were all in the room together when that happened. As you get bigger and as you start to, you know, get married, have families and things like that, the band kind of starts to spread out, so you don't rehearse as much as you used to. Even though we're on tour all the time, you know, when you've got a bunch of other bands, I mean, like today's a perfect example. We probably won't do a sound check because we want to give them time enough. We took all the time yesterday, being it was the first day, and we had to rehearse a bunch. So now it's our time to kind of give back to them and make sure that they can get, you know, it's going to be a long tour, so let's get everything dialed in and make sure everyone's comfortable. But, you know, we used to just do that, sit in the room, moving away from each other. It came reliant more on the demo thing where we passed demos around. But the problem with that is by the time you get to the studio, you've got two guys that have written an incredible chorus on the same song, and one guy who's the odd man out feeling like he never had a say in any of it. You know, and that's how we had to do it for a while. But, you know, the past two records, Blackout the Sun and Time Travelers and Bonfires, we said, you know what, let's not bring hardly anything in there. You know, it's hard for me and Clint not to show up with demo ideas and things like that, but we weren't leaning on them. You know, it was like, you know what, these are over here if we need them. Let's just go over here, start jamming, and see what happens. And every day it was like Christmas for 10 days in a row, because we didn't know what the song was going to be that day. There's a big question mark. We know at the end of the day there's going to be something that LJ can sing on the next day, but we had no idea what it was going to be.
That's kind of the inspiration.
It's cool, you know, when you go in there. Plus the other thing that you eliminate in the whole process is, you know, we're notorious years ago for, you know, you write tons and tons of demos. I mean, me and Clint would go psycho on records. You know, we'd write 20, 25 songs. We'd show up with 50 songs. It's hard to pick through the best of 50 songs. Plus, you start to get demo-itis because you really start to fall in love with some of the demos that you've gotten. You play them for the guys and you get a lukewarm reaction, and then you're like, wait a minute, that's the best I got. I just threw my best thing at you, and you guys all went, yeah, that's pretty cool, and walked off. So there's none of that when you're sitting in the room. There's no guesswork as to, you know, if I'm programming a drum beat, sometimes I have to be careful on doing things. As an ex-drummer, some things that would come natural to me are not things that might be natural to Morgan, and vice versa. So when you're sitting in the room in front of him and he plays a beat, that's what he was going to play. There's no mystery, there's no guesswork. You know, you don't have to guess over a bass line that Vinny would be happy to play or whatever, because he's just playing. You know, I like doing them both ways, but I think the all-together way eliminates all of the issues that you have with typical songwriting. You know, what's mine, whose is whose, who wrote what, who gets this, who gets that. We just get together and do Beatles style. Everyone just splits at 20%. I mean, even if Clint writes an entire song or I write an entire song, everyone was there while it was happening, you know. And everyone's got hot and cold days.
Right.
There's some days where you go in with the best intentions and you just don't come up with anything. But the beauty of it is you got four other guys where out of those four guys, at least two of them are going to be having an on day. Right. So everyone jumps on board their train of thought, and then all of a sudden, same thing. Like I said, that night you've got to finish something. You got a song, you know. So it's a cool band to be in the fact that there's never a time when we can't write a song, because someone within the five of us is going to have a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
You know, even a decent idea, you know. But that's the cool thing about Sevendust is there's so many strong opinions and, you know, strong personalities within the band.
It gives you guys a big diversity. I think that's part of your crossover.
Sure. I mean, another, you know, thing, you know, if you look at Lejean's playlist versus Vinny's playlist and my playlist, there's not a whole lot of crossover between the three. But we're best friends, you know, and we make cool music together because we still lean on our influences, you know. As much as I'm trying to throw the Pantera in there, Lejean's trying to throw the R&B in there, you know. But that's kind of what makes it cool, is everyone has a different sound and a different element that they bring to the table.
But you guys are one of the few bands who could, just like you say, lay down a smoldering Pantera riff and have Lejean sing this bluesy thing over top of it,
right.
and it would work perfectly.
Sure.
There's not a lot of bands that can do that.
Sure. Years ago, someone asked LeJean, they're like, what would you call your music? Because when we were coming out, it was weird. New metal hadn't started yet.
No, not really.
They were trying to figure out what to call Korn, and they were getting close to a name, but they really couldn't peg it. And we were an album or two behind them, and we had the black guy, so immediately everyone was like, oh, they're a rap rock band. It was like, LJ doesn't rap at all.
No.
Any of the rapping done in this band has usually been by Morgan.
I was going to say, he's the closest to that kind of cadence.
He's the closest to that kind of a thing, but we didn't fit in. So they were like, what do you call them? Do you call them progressive? Do you call them, they called us, what were we called? Jeez, there's a poster that has something on there that's just the funniest thing that I've ever heard, because it was used for like 6 months and then the term never stuck. But, for lack of a better term, LeJean was like, we're soul metal.
You know what? That works.
He goes, because I'm an R&B singer and these guys just refuse to stop playing Metallica riffs. We all wear our influences on our sleeves, and we got lucky in the fact that we're also all, suckers for a good song. Back in the day, as much as I was a Metallica fan, I'm not gonna lie to you, Journey was one of my favorite bands. I mean, bands like Duran Duran, even though years ago, oh, you weren't a Duran Duran fan. Yeah, you fucking were.
Yeah, you were.
Everybody was,
You just didn't play it around your friends.
You just didn't play it around your friends, but we were all appreciative of a singer who could sing his ass off. So
you guys are fortunate.
I was always torn because a lot of the metal bands for me, the one detractor was the death metal vocal style. It was Pantera was a nice breath of fresh air, because even though it was the heaviest thing you'd ever heard, Phil was a singer.
Oh, yeah.
He came from a pure singing background and morphed into the heavy guy, as opposed to being, no disrespect intended, but someone like a Tom Araya who's just a growler.
Yeah, he is.
That was the only thing about most of those metal bands that I'd always wished. It was like, what if you could take all that heavy stuff and have someone who could just sing their ass off? And I think we found that with LeJean. I don't know if we're the heaviest band going, but we're doing what we want to do, and he does what he wants to do. Sometimes we try to push it into a heavy direction. Sometimes we go straight up and do the acoustic thing, but I think there's a lot of latitude between those two things, and LeJean is the whole key.
Oh yeah.
Because he can make the heaviest thing ever be the most melodic thing just by singing, a nice hooky chorus over it.
Exactly. You were touching on the heavier sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Black Out the Sun is probably one of your heaviest and darkest albums to date. Maybe outside of Cold Day Memory.
Sure.
That was a pretty heavy album too.
Mm-hmm.
Was that intentional? Did you know that you were going to do an acoustic thing next and try to put something really heavy out?
I mean,
or you just felt it that way?
I think the acoustic thing it's always been on the radar. It was just a matter of when the timing was going to fall into place. But I don't think the vibe of Black Out the Sun had anything to do with what we thought we were going to do in the future. I think the vibe of Black Out the Sun came from the year before, because the year prior to that, we took off.
Oh, that's right.
We weren't Sevendust. We took a solid year off, and 2 side projects came out of it, which
projected
awesome. and Call Me Nolan. Thank you, man. And as much as we love those and we support those, I'm not gonna lie to you, the first 2 or 3 months when this project's getting a focus here and this project's getting a focus here, and there's the question about when we're going to get back together, there was a lot of speculating going on. I mean, there was a lot of people who were just saying, oh, that's it, Sevendust is over. And it's maddening when you're sitting there and you're trying to respond to people going, man, can't we just hit the pause button and be friends?
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the reasons I thought it was important to get LeJean on the projected record, because Call Me No One record happened so quickly that it was like, you know what, everyone's getting the wrong idea here. Let me get him in and sing on a few songs, and everyone was like, oh, why would he sing on there if they're mad at each other, and why would Call Me No One be on Seven Brothers Records if they're mad at each other? It was like, look, people, we just needed to give Sevendust a rest for a second.
Do something else creatively.
Do something else creative, give the brand a break without totally disappearing. And the kicker is, in an off year, we actually produced 3 records between all of the members, so Sevendust fans got more by us actually taking a little bit of time off, I think the darkness had a lot to do with a lot of the turmoil that was going on that we sorted through, put it on a record, and got past, It's not easy when you're a band who's been going for 20 years to just stop and say, all right, we need to figure it out, because we're not a band like Metallica that can take, 4 or 5 years off and be set with money in the bank.
Yeah, you guys are road dogs.
We're a working band. So for us, there's a big question mark. What do we do? All right, you got to get out there and you're going to hustle. Or you're going to do your side projects or do production things or do a lot of the things that you'd always talked about doing. But I think that year break for us was important, because as much as we needed a break, the fans needed a break too, because we had gotten to the point where it was just a relentless touring cycle, just round and round and round. And as much as it's great to go and play New York, 4 or 5 times an album cycle, the fan has only got so much money to spend on seeing Sevendust. A lot of other bands out there. So I think everything just needed a break, and it just needed a pause. But a lot of people were reading in, that's it. They said, nope, they got side projects, it's over.
See,
when nothing could have been further from the truth.
Yeah, I read it the exact opposite. I thought it was great for you guys that you could do that, because so many bands would just do something totally different under the name of the band, and the fans get put off by it or whatever.
Sure,
you guys took the time, did something completely creative, and when you came back together, your album was stronger for it.
Well, of course, and a lot of people have asked, did you gain any experience doing Projected? Absolutely. I have a much greater understanding and appreciation of what the lead singer of a band goes through. I had to up my game, being the only guitar player that was actually physically writing, songs. Same thing with Clint. We didn't have the guy to lean on. Not to say that E-Rock didn't contribute, but most of the songs were kind of together. E-Rock had a lot of contribution in like the overdub area, vocals, lyrics, things like that. He actually helped me produce myself, because I'm used to somebody telling me whether it's cool or not. I got nobody now. But it was a cool experience, because it was like, you sharpen your skills, you get better as a singer, you get better as a band member, because now all of a sudden you're in their shoes. So when you come back and you see LJ in the booth struggling with a part, you get it, because you were just there 3 months prior going, all right, now this makes sense. So for us it was awesome, because when we got in there we were more efficient, we were more patient. I think patience is the one thing. Is it's like, as a songwriter, you can hear something in your head 100 times the way that you would do it, and if you're not singing it, it doesn't matter. Because if LeJean doesn't feel it that way, or it's not something that's natural for him, it doesn't matter whether it's cool for you or not. Right. In the Projected stuff, I learned why a lot of the stuff that sometimes, when we used to do the separate demo things, you'd do a demo and you'd always inevitably have some kind of a chorus idea. And it would sound amazing with you singing it. And then you bring it to the band and you put your twist on, what you would do, and you give it to LJ, and it just sounded square and plain. And I was like, why does it sound so white? Oh yeah, the white guy wrote it. So let's get the white guy out of the mix and let the singer of Sevendust actually do his twist on it, So for me, it was a great learning experience, because, when you're in a band and you're not the lead singer, it's easy to hide behind somebody. You could sneak in and kind of just like, yeah, cool. But when you're the singer, you're out there and you're completely exposed, But, I'm grateful that all the fans got the final message when it was all said and done. I think when we announced we were getting back together to do Black Out the Sun, a lot of people were like, all right, we're relieved, because 6 months of all this chatter back and forth. And then, of course, somebody would post something on Facebook, and I'd be in the studio, and I'd hear it, and I'd call 9 people, be like, what's going on? All over nothing, because someone said something. Oh, wait a minute, maybe the band is over. I'm the last to find out, because I'm neck deep in the studio making a record, But I think the vibe of the record was just because of a lot of that. And a lot of that was just, it wasn't internal. It was a lot of the external, peanut galleries that were all chirping about what was going to happen, what wasn't going to happen, what's getting posted online. I'm like, geez, man, there's more news in Sevendust world with us being off than there was with us being on.
Was the desire to have that creative freedom part of what prompted you guys to start Seven Brothers Records? Yeah,
I mean, in a lot of ways, I think, we had done the typical, do the standard record deal kind of vibe, and there's a lot to be said about a standard label. Now, I'm not necessarily a big fan of like a lot of the 360 deals and stuff that's going on now, and I think they're kind of going more by the wayside, because a lot of bands are kind of looking at it going, wait a minute, this seems like a great deal, but let's do the math and let's take the taxes out and pay everyone and then see how much we got left, and you realize it's not much, But when you do Seven Brothers, the upside is we make a lot more money off the record. The downside is it's us, like we are the label. The band is the label. So we outsource a lot of our stuff. We outsource the radio, we outsource our publicity, all that stuff. So we've got a lot of the pieces in place that a typical label would have, but the pressure's on you, You go to make a record, okay, where's the budget? Where's the advance? Well, you got to go and you got to hustle it, We made more money off that CD, but if you spend all the money and you got no money to make a record, then you got to hang out until you can, generate enough capital to do it. So there's an upside and a downside. I think the upside, though, is you have a lot more control, way more control, and you don't really have to listen to a lot of, Suits over the years would drive us nuts. Back in the TBT days, We handed Animosity and they told us they didn't hear a single. You know,
Really?
we struggled with that record. It was like,
Wow.
it's one of our fans' favorite records, one of our favorite records, and one of TVT's least favorite records. It was the worst debut we had out of any record. They released it in November, up against Celine Dion and Creed and Michael Jackson and all the heavy hitters, you know. But they hated the record.
Wow.
And, you know, when you're looking at, in hindsight, now that we have 7 brothers and all we have to do is sign off on each other, you know, if in hindsight, if we had, you know, 7 brothers in place when Animosity, we might have had a totally different approach to how it was released, what the single would have ended up being. But that was a struggle for us, and it was because it was a typical record label. This was, you know, in 2001, that was at the height of the Strokes, the Hives, the White Stripes, all the Cardigans, you know, wearing, you know, wear your hair long in the front, cut it short in the back, and horn-rimmed glasses. It was like, that was the vibe, and that's what TBT really wanted us to be.
Ooh.
They actually mentioned it a couple times. They mentioned the Strokes and the Hives, and I was like, you really don't get what kind of a band we are at all. You know, and they're like, oh, you have this singer that has this ability. I'm like, dude, have you seen our band? You know what I mean? Like, going out with Creed was a stretch. You know, it's like...
Yeah, we saw that tour.
You know, I mean, and it was a stretch and it worked, but it was like, you know, that's not our wheelhouse. Our wheelhouse is out on like a Tattoo the Earth tour and the Ozfest and things like that. So, you know, when you're dealing with a typical label, sometimes the message gets mixed up in the what's hot. You know, instead of getting behind a band and believing in what that band does and appreciating that they are what they are, leave it alone. You know, when I produce a band, the last thing I want to do is put Sevendust all over it. I don't want to put myself on it. I just want to take what's there and steer it into a better place, make that the best that that can be. You know, there's a lot of people who would take a different approach. They want to put their signature all over everything. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, Chad Kroeger writing songs for Theory of a Dead Man. I hear it.
Yeah.
They're close, they're tight, they're friends, it works. That's not the way that I look at doing things. So, you know, I don't even remember what the original point was.
I was wondering if the creative freedom of just having your own label.
Yeah, with the label, the whole label thing.
Does it also alleviate pressure for like deadlines and stuff?
Well, yeah, because you're on your own clock then, you know.
I didn't know with distribution deals if you still got...
Distribution deals are pretty cut and dry because basically all it really specifies is it doesn't specify when you have to deliver something. It just specifies that when you do, they have the rights for worldwide physical and digital distribution. That's it. That's the only thing that they have in place. Now beyond that, you can take a step into, if you want to pay for radio, then you have a budget for that, and if you want to pay for any of the other services that they may have to offer. But yeah, I mean, they're never going to say, nah, this record sucks. They could care less.
Okay.
They're like, if you're going to put your name on it, we're going to put it out there, and if it doesn't sell, then you did something wrong. You know what I mean? So the pressure's definitely on you, for sure. That may be looked at as a downside, but I think, you know, 10 years into this type of doing business, there's way more upside to it, for sure. You know, it's a way more relaxed working environment. You know, you don't have to worry about... I mean, Animosity took the wind right out of our sails. I mean, we were so proud of that record, and when they...
I think it's one of your best.
We're sending single... I mean, we sent 9 songs in, and they're just like, we don't hear the single yet. We sent Crucified in, Dead Set, Trust, Shine.
Wow.
Didn't hear a single. I'm like, how can you listen to Shine and not hear a single? That's not humanly possible.
Yeah. How can you listen to that album and not be overwhelmed trying to pick which single to go first?
What was popular at that time, and everything that was at radio was all the whatever, you know. And where are they now?
Yeah, exactly. Where are they now?
You know, and we could see that it was like a trend, and I think, well, I don't even know if the White Stripes, I don't know if they'll actually do anything with the Strokes. I think the Strokes switched their name. They're just Strokes or something, like they misspelled. It's like different now. It's,
okay.
It's all weird, but anyways, you know, it's neither here nor there. It was a trend, and we were like, if there's anything you need to understand about this band is we're not going to follow a trend. We don't fit a trend.
No, you don't.
We didn't fit a trend when we started. I mean, the first record was confusing enough because you got this black guy with this band playing all these heavy riffs, and nobody could figure out what to call it. It was like perfect.
I remember the first time seeing the advertisement for the album, and in the advertisement for the debut album, there was clips from Bitch and Black,
Sure.
And I saw that on TV, and I thought to myself, who the fuck are these guys?
Right.
And why have I not heard about them?
Right. It was like the closest thing was like a metal version of Living Color. Like we just took it and pushed it two steps further than they had taken it, you know?
Yeah, it was intense right out of the gate.
We realized Lejean was just going to be what he was going to be, so it was like, let's not try to fit, you know? The best thing we could do is not fit, and if it works, then that means that you have a sound. Whether it sells forever, or whether you get millions or hundreds or 10 or one person who likes it, as long as you like it, at least you did something that you didn't feel like, all right, we're going to sound like this band. I mean, I hear our influences all the time. I hear it in me, I hear it in Clint, but that's just us scrutinizing the parts and making sure that we're not ripping off any of our heroes and stuff. I mean, we all cut our teeth on the same, you know, things that a lot of other bands do.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
real easy to play a riff that sounds exactly like Metallica or Pantera, but you try to put your spin on it, your twist on it. And then, like I said, we're lucky enough in the fact that Lejean does his thing. That even if we played a Metallica song exactly, it will never sound like Metallica with him singing it, because he can't sing like that. You know?
Oh, Jesus, lost my train of thought. Sorry about that.
It's all good. I just I was like, where are we?
You were talking about the numbers earlier, about how many demos you throw at each other. You guys, song-wise, got to be like up into 140, 150 songs.
We're about
Does that
140. I mean, you know, it was funny. We were when we were making Blackout the Sun. Wolfgang Van Halen was actually up there with us he was up there for about a week and a half, just kind of hanging out. And we walked across the street to the murder bar, the actual murder bar, and we were joking around. Because he said, "I bet you guys have more songs in the jukebox than Van Halen does." And I started thinking, I was like, I'm not taking that bet, because I have a feeling we do have more songs in that jukebox than Van Halen does, because we've got a lot more. I mean, one of their records was only, what, 28 minutes long? Diver Down was like the shortest record in history at that point.
With one of the worst covers.
I was like, So sure enough, they had one of those digital jukeboxes, and we went over there, and I think Van Halen had like 104, and we were like 132 or something like that at that point. And now we got another record. So yeah, it's close to 140 songs, you know. That's and cool. It's funny because each record has its certain, like that kind of a song will show up here and there, and it's like a signature Sevendust thing. You know, there's 4 or 5 signature moves that we have that we kind of try to reinvent, you know. But you know, we do our best to hide our influences, you know.
Does it make it hard to pick the set list, having that much material now? And are there certain songs that you have love-hate relationship that you, you know, you got to play it, but you're kind of tired of playing it? Or certain ones? Black is one of them.
Black is one of those ones that every time we try to give it a break, everyone's like, nope, we don't want to hear it. We did
Not
an acoustic
happening.
record. We're like, we're gonna do an acoustic record. #1 fan pick, Black, out of every song in our catalog. And I mean, it crushed everything else. So we were like, all right, we have to do that one. There's no way around it, you know. But yeah, with 140 songs, it's tough. There's certain ones that I'm not going to say we dislike, but we might not like as much as some of the other ones. You know, now that we have Clint back in the band, the focus is not so much on the 3 records we did without him, even though he inevitably pulls songs. He's the one who's usually pulling songs from those records, putting them in the set list. So, because they're fun for him to play, since he didn't, you know, he wasn't there for that whole period with us. But yeah, 140 in, it's tough to pick a set list for sure. But we do know, you know, for us, we don't do a set list and go, well, screw the fans, we don't care what they want, we're going to play what we want to hear. We're very in tune with what the fans have been asking for. You know, what goes up on Facebook, what is the most common request that we haven't been playing lately. You know, if we give Angel Sun a break for 2 or 3 weeks, we hear about it. If we give Black a break for 2 days, we hear about it. So a lot of it is based more on what we know fans are going to be excited about hearing, you know. Even though we may not want to do face-to-face every show, we realize it's pretty much a staple at this point. So.
Okay.
But it is not the final song anymore. It has moved.
Oh, it has?
It has moved, yes.
I lost my train of thought again. Is there you know, you guys went from the acoustic, you're doing the electric. Is the electric throughout the summer, is that kind of in keeping with all the festivals that you have coming? Is it to keep that electric vibe? Because I know that you're going back into the acoustic at the end of the year, is that right?
Maybe. We're looking at a run right now. The original run that they had outlined we weren't too happy with, because two of the key cities that we wanted to hit acoustic, they were electric shows that they had on the book. So it was like, we were going to do acoustic all around it, do those 2 in the middle electric, and it was a really short tour. So we we kind of pumped the brakes on that one and said no until we come up with a little bit of a better plan. We're going to do it again. This will be, the acoustic thing will be kind of interesting because we can go into that gear at any point in time, and probably be able to do it and do it to where, you know, fans will be into it, and we could go out there and actually, you know, not break the bank, you know, taking it all out. But I think doing the electric thing for us is just, you know, when we first did the acoustic thing, it was a breath of fresh air. We sat in the stools, and after 3 or 4 months, we're like, man, we're ready to stand up again, you know, just for a little bit. Plus having other bands on tour with you. You know, we had done the whole, it's real cool doing an evening with until you're 3 months in, and you're just, every day it's just one bus, guys on the bus. It was great yesterday. We showed up, and there's all these other bands loading in and hanging out. Hey man, I've seen you on. It's like, oh shoot, this is like, as much as the evening with is cool, and we loved it, and the fans loved it, it's cool to have a package again and actually have a normal show, you know. So for us, it was just kind of like we were just jonesing. It was like, let's go do the acoustic thing, and then let's do the electric thing a little bit, just to kind of not forget it, and you know, to give the acoustic thing a little bit of a break too.
You touched a little bit briefly about Clint being gone and coming back. Was it awkward having to break that news to Sonny? And can we talk a little bit about the chemistry, the original five being back together?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the departure was real tough because we had finally gotten out of the record deal, which was, a lot of people may look at it as, oh, you know, they don't have their own sign, they don't have a deal anymore. But for us, it was such a big blessing. But it was weird because you know, like this 1 week we get this great news that the deal's done, we're out of the contract, and then next week Clint's gone. So we were like, wait a minute. Good news, bad news, you know, how do we deal with this? And we just had to kind of put our nose to the grindstone and move forward. I mean, we made the next record pretty quick. We leaned heavy on the demos, you know, a lot of the demos that had been sitting around. I had a stockpile of stuff. We all got together at my house and, you know, threw it together, and we moved on. It wasn't easy, you know, and there was a lot of he said, she said, and all this stuff. And, you know, years later after the fact, after Clint was in a better place, we'd actually been talking with Clint for a good, maybe almost a year before we brought him back in, because he knew it wasn't going to be a thing where he was just going to step back in.
So did Sonny kind of see it coming then, maybe?
Well, I think he always suspected it because, you know, the funny thing about it, Clint's a recovered alcoholic. You know, he's been sober for 6-7 years at this point. You know, so
that's pretty tough, man, especially the life on the road.
Yeah, but he's solid. Like he's over the hump. Like some people, you worry if they're ever going to relapse and things like that. He's got his life together, like he never has. I mean, he made me a lot more together than most of the rest of us. You know what I mean? But the funny thing is, you know, Sonny is in the same spot. He was just 5 or 6 years on the front side, so he'd been sober for longer. And as a recovering addict, you always understand that there's a possibility if you cleaned yourself up, then anyone else, if they put their mind to it, can do the same thing. And for us, it was a matter of, you know, our biggest concern with Clint was he just wasn't happy anymore. No matter what he did, who he was with, what he was into, it was just like, I remember for us, it was like, we just wanted to see him smile again and just be happy, you know, no matter what it was, whether it was with us or without us, with Darkening Day, whoever he was going to be with. So when he did pull himself back together and we started having the conversations, it was a tough one because there was one option. One option was to finish the album cycle with Sonny and then, you know, make the announcement and then hop right back in the studio. But that was kind of awkward for us too because we didn't know how we really felt about it. We almost wanted to just get back in the bus, get back on tour, and do something that wasn't creative at all. Do something that was just us doing what we did, like you talked about the chemistry. You know, we knew it was going to snap back into place pretty quick, and it did. It was different. It was the original chemistry for sure. But for us, it was important for us to get to know each other before we hop right back into a studio environment and go through that process. Because the studio environment can be tough for the guy who's not getting his parts into the songs. And when you bring in a guy who just came out of, all right, I left for 4 years and now I'm back, there's always a little apprehension going into it too. So by the time we hit the studio, we had an entire album cycle under our belts. I mean, not that we were tired of each other by any point, but we had gotten past all the weirdness. There was no elephant in the room anymore. And honestly, the Sonny thing was one of the toughest things that we ever had to do, you know, because he didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
It was just, you know, the writing was on the wall, and we could tell. It was like, not that it's better or whatever, but there's just something cool about the original chemistry of the band.
There really is. And that's nothing against Sonny either, because the albums with Sonny were just as solid as any of your other albums.
Sure. But they had a slightly different vibe, because there was that Clint element that I could fake a little bit, but I'm not Clint.
Right.
You know, we would do our best, you know, with him being apart from me and me being apart from him, to kind of, you know, all right, what would John do here? And, you know, especially on the next album, it was like, all right, there's a void here, you know, that we got to fill. And Sonny was basically coming in, so he was gun shy in the first place, because he's in a brand new band,
right?
You know, but it wasn't easy, you know, and we knew that there was never going to be an easy time to do it. We did make a conscious decision, though, that we had Australia on the books, and that was the last thing that we were going to do before we were going to make the switch, because he was excited about going to Australia, and Australia is such a cool place to tour. So we were like, look, let's wait until we do get that done, get back in the States, and then kind of decompress for a second, and then have the talk. And you know, I mean, I think he was upset and he was angry, and you know, it went a little weird there at the front. But he got up on stage with us, you know, year and a half ago, and jammed pieces, and everything's cool now. And the funny thing is, he and Clint actually stay in contact more.
Oh, interesting.
Through AA and through a lot of the groups that they're involved in, and they actually support each other.
Oh, that's awesome.
They actually, you know, everyone sponsors somebody once you're in the program X amount of times, and a lot of these people are moving around between different folks, so they talk to each other all the time.
Oh, that's very
cool.
cool.
They really do, you know.
So you guys have good enough terms that he could maybe make a guest appearance somewhere
Absolutely.
down the road. And with that kind of train of thought in mind, is there anybody who you'd love to work with in the future, or just as when you take another decompression time, is there someone you'd like to have a project with in the future?
Shit, I mean, Dave Grohl.
Everybody wants to work with Dave.
Dave Grohl play drums and produce vocals. You know, I mean, he's got the Midas touch. He is Tom Petty. He is our version of Tom Petty.
He really is.
I never would have thought in a million years that guy would have turned into it. But I'm telling you, man, he just doesn't write a bad song.
No.
You know, and he can write the same song over and over again 20 times, and it has that AC/DC effect. Nobody gives a shit, because it's amazing and it's great.
Yep.
A guy like him, it would be great, because we've met him. He's very down to earth, very, very cool. I mean, there's plenty of people out there. I mean, he's the most obvious just because he's the most not Sevendust, you know, the most, you know, the one thing that would probably be an element that would be totally different. But, you know, I mean,
the Probot project shows, though, you guys would click very easily.
Yep. But, I mean, I don't know, the list is too long. You know, you got Dave Grohl. I mean, Trent Reznor is like a guy that I think, you know, just having him produce something, I mean, if he wanted to be on it or not be on it, it would be cool to actually get his mind just behind anything. Lamb of God guys, it'd be cool to do something with them, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think at this point in time, I think, you know, there's been so many different weird collaborations and things that just about anything would be, you know, an option for sure. Corey Taylor, he's got too many side projects. That would be a guy that would be cool too, because he's starting to become what Dave Grohl was 10 years ago, where he just doesn't write a bad song, whether it be in Slipknot or Stone Sour, you know. And he's just got such a cool presence.
He's really coming into his own as a
he's
songwriter.
He's such a cool person too. Like, he's just a really, really down-to-earth guy. He's legit, too. Like, he's a fan of Sevendust. He comes in singing the songs. Like, he knows the lyrics better than we do. You know, we're still looking on cheat sheets and stuff, and he knows the stuff, so. But he's an unbelievable talent. You know?
Were you at the Rock on the Range roast for him, the comedy roast?
We saw video. We saw the video from it. And
my editor
awesome.
Covered it out there, and he said it was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Corey's a good guy, man. He's a comedian, too, man. He's hysterical.
Oh, yeah.
You know. There's that train of thought.
Yeah, it's terrible. You know, I don't want to keep looking at my notebook. You were talking about you guys don't really party as much anymore. So what's your big vice on the road now, and what do you do to unwind?
You know, vice.
Or do you even have the time once a tour starts?
I mean, we're all gym addicts. You know, I mean, Clint's in a CrossFit right now. You know, I lift, Vinny lifts. I don't know if you call that a vice or not, but that's kind of more what replaces the days of what we used to do. You know, hanging out until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning with whoever, wherever. It's not that doesn't happen, you know, but it just doesn't happen as much. I just like feeling better on stage. I hate feeling like shit when I'm up there. I can't stand it.
But you guys are a very physical band.
True. And those first 2 records, I'm not gonna lie to you, there were a lot of shows where we were like, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. You know, the 4 of us across the front are looking at each other going, this is gonna be real hard to pull off, you know. And it's so nice to not feel like that when you're on stage, especially at our age when you're playing a longer show. And a lot of the stuff, you know, let's not lie. I mean, I love the first record, I love the second record, but as we got better as a band, we also physically started writing a lot more complicated stuff. You know, we didn't have a Strong Arm Broken or a Splinter on the first 2 or 3 records. I mean, they're demanding songs. They're not easy to play. I mean, we may make it look like it's easy, but, you know, there's a certain amount of, I'm glad I'm not hungover when you're having to do those things. You know, whether it be the vocal end of things, or whether it be all the singing, or just the riffing. We got bored with our original sound, so we kind of added on to it, and we figured, you know what, we could probably do this until the cows come home, as long as LJ does what he does. And, you know, that's the consistency within Sevendust, but it's not, you know, I would much rather, you know, if someone said, would you rather play Cold Day Memories start to finish, or the first record? As far as what I would like to play and what I would like to hear right now, I want to do Cold Day Memory, but we'd have to rehearse for a bit to go through a lot of those songs. The first record we could probably do on a day's rehearsal, just kind of going through, getting to know you know, remembering the things. So, yeah, I mean, we're thankful that we're not dying up there. But I don't know if the gym is a vice, but yeah, I think everyone's got wives, kids.
Is it hard being away from them? Are you able to like sneak time in with them when you're on the road?
We have kind of a deal where if we do a 5 or 6 week tour, they don't typically come out to us because we don't have a lot of space on the bus. And a lot of places are just, they may be cool to visit, but for someone who's riding around on the bus looking, you know, when you're packed into the bus, it gets old real fast. So it's easier for us to go home. Usually about every 3 weeks, we'll take like, you know, a 2-3 day break, go unplug, go home, do that, and then we'll come back out and do the second half of the tour. So, you know, when our agent doesn't give us the 2 day break, he hears about it. Okay. And unfortunately, we usually end up having to bag a show and move a show or move a date. It's real easy for the booking agent to throw it all together, and then you're like, thanks, but remember, we do have to live it, you know. And as much as we love it, you have to have balance. You know, I think we appreciate what we do out here, and we appreciate the fans, and we love playing music more when we do get a chance to actually get some family time, because you know, you never really get that back. I mean, it's something that always kind of moves forward. And you know, I turned around when we were home on this last break, and my daughter, who's 9 now, she asked me, she goes, I wonder who I could give the rest of my Barbies to. And I was like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, wait a minute, you're done with Barbies? She was like, well, I'm going to keep like 2 or 3, but I think I'm done with them. And I was just like, wow.
You missed that Barbie transition.
I missed the I'm like, hang on a second, you know, what is going on here? But, you know, that's the thing, is if you can have satisfaction with that and make that work, it makes all of this so much easier and so much better. If there's stress, turmoil, or you haven't seen your family in forever, you know, the end of the tour is always the time when you can tell, you know, we're like, okay, we're a little cooked. It's time to go home and roll in the grass and chase the dog and, you know, clean up the spilled milk and do all the, you know, the stuff around the house, you know, the to-do list, you know. That's what I'd be more into right now than doing the 11 billionth show, which is great, but you got to find time for you know, family.
Oh yeah,
you really do.
Okay, I know we're probably getting short on time, and you've got a lot to do. Let me throw a couple more quick, generic ones at you, so to speak. Any surprises in the set tonight? Any like covers or something you haven't heard?
No covers. No, we haven't got to the cover point of it. Yeah, there's a lot of surprises in the set tonight because it's a completely different set.
Exactly.
There's a lot of some of the same songs, but they're all in a different spot. You know? We moved a lot of things around. We're kind of doing a hybrid version of a few songs that we took from acoustic. They're sort of acoustic, but kind of not. Yeah, I mean, there actually are a few songs that, well, there's 1 or 2 songs we've never jammed electric, so that's always exciting when you stand up there and go, oh, how's this going to go over? You know, because you're feeling kind of weird, and the crowd's like this, because like, wow, we've never seen this before. But yeah, I mean, the set is what you would expect from a Sevendust set, but it's a little different.
Okay, cool. What was the first album you ever bought?
First album I ever
with your own money?
with my own money, Kiss Alive 2.
Me too.
Kiss Alive 2. Kiss Alive 2, Aerosmith Rocks, and Toys in the Attic were the first 3 records that I ever actually bought myself. Mom and Dad bought me the Bay City Rollers.
Nice.
And I was like, you know, when you're 8, you can kind of pull it off. But once I was like 11, I was like, this isn't really cool anymore. None of my friends are listening to this. But yeah, Kiss Alive 2 was the first album. That was kind of the start of it all. Because I remember, I knew I was going to be in trouble when I brought it home. I just knew. There was no doubt about it. You know, especially because I hadn't seen the inside. All you could see was the front and the back. You know, Gene Simmons spitting blood, big Kiss thing, and you know, of course, Mom was very familiar with Kiss by that point in time, even though I was just getting into them. By the time Kiss Alive 2 was around, they were a big band.
Oh yeah.
Even if you didn't like Kiss, you knew who they were, and they were, you know, oh, you got Ozzy biting heads off bats, but before that, he's spitting up blood and breathing fire, and you know, oh, Kiss is Knights in Satan's Service, and you know, Mom would tell me all these things. But I remember bringing that record home, and I remember opening it up, and I was like, oh no, I'm in such trouble. And she came in and she looked at it. She's like, and she heard Detroit Rock City, and then it was like, okay, we need to have a talk with your father. And I'm like, But they were cool. I mean, they realized I was into it, and it was everything Kiss. I mean, I had everything.
Yeah, me too.
Everything.
That kind of ties into my next question. Was there like an epiphany for you that you knew that your life was going to be music? Because for me, it was when I saw the inside of that Kiss 2 album. I was like, that's it for me.
I think that was the drive. I think that was the original drive. It was such a, that centerfold. It was weird because I had that album, and somehow or another throughout the years, we misplaced a bunch of records, and I don't have that album anymore. And a buddy of mine picked one up on the last tour, and he gave it to me as a gift, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And I remember I was standing there just a couple days ago. I opened it up because it's in my closet, and I was just sitting there looking, and I was like, this reminds me when I was 8 years old, the first time I opened this up. I think I kind of knew then, but I really, really didn't know until, it's so funny because those 2 bands are like this too, which is weird. Van Halen was what really kind of set the wheels in motion big time. And I was a drummer.
So Eddie's tapping and
Eddie's tapping to me. I was like, I am so glad I'm not a guitar player right now. You know? Van Halen was kind of the thing. I was like, wow, that's just the fact that was possible. And you know, that band, I was like, as much as I love Kiss, there was something that Van Halen did that was so over the top. Like that was at the point where I could kind of tell, musicianship wise, there was something else to offer. You know, between Eddie and Michael Anthony singing, you know, 9 octaves, you know, high, and David Lee Roth running around doing his Jim Dandy tricks and all that stuff, you know. For me, that was the point in time. But beyond that, it was Rush. It was all Rush because I was a drummer, you know, and I was woodshedding on the Neil Peart. I actually got into Zeppelin after Rush. I learned all that stuff, and not that you're ever taking a step back when you're learning Zeppelin, but I actually had to learn. I mean, I learned more about pocket and feel from Zeppelin than I ever learned from Rush, because Rush wasn't about that. Rush was about everything gridded out, you know, human beings that were as mechanical and machine-like and progressive. And, you know, for me, it was probably those 3 bands. But, yeah, I mean, I kind of had an idea, you know. But I originally thought it was all going to be about drums. I really had no idea it was going to be about guitar, vocals, you know, a songwriter. I wasn't looking at being a songwriter. I just wanted to be a dude that was in a band, you know. And then as you progress, you know, as a drummer, you always get frustrated. I can understand why Dave Grohl is who he is today. Because you want to write a song, right? You want to play the guitar. It's cool. Playing big power chords is awesome. As much as it's a lot of fun playing the drums, but you know, drummers don't get taken as seriously as a lot of other people do when it comes to songwriting. Even if you throw good ideas out.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's some bands that drummers are prominent songwriters, like Mushroomhead and stuff. You know, Skinny's a big part of it.
Sevendust.
Yeah, exactly.
Morgan's a huge piece of the puzzle. You know. He's involved in a lot of the stuff, you know. He's not your typical drummer. He's got an amazing voice, and he's got a good knack for songwriting.
Oh, so he's such a compliment to the genre.
It would be so stupid for us to ignore that or try to water that down or try to make him something he isn't going to be. And I think that's, at the end of the day, I think that's the coolest thing about Sevendust is everybody in the band is allowed to do their thing, their way, and it all cohabitates within the same space, you know. Sometimes we step on each other's toes, but usually it's during a studio thing, and you know, everyone's got space and time and you know, a part in the bigger picture of it. You know.
Let me leave you with one final question. Any final thoughts or anything for the fans tonight? Anything you want to say to them?
Just, the fact that we're real excited to be back out electric again. I mean, the acoustic thing was great. It was a lot of fun, but, it's nice to get off the stool and actually rock out a little bit. Even though I got some pretty serious rock neck going right now. It's one thing about the acoustic tour you don't get. I woke up this morning, I was like, oh.
The first couple nights back into this.
Yep, first couple nights back into it, it's always the worst. But yeah, I mean, for us, it's just exciting to be back out playing electric again. And it's a testament to the fans that they're coming out when we don't really have a new record out. This is still sort of Black Out the Sun, I guess, that we're in support of. But it's nice to come out and actually have folks come out regardless of what we're doing. So.
Okay. Just one last one. Mm-hmm. What's next for Sevendust? After the tours this winter, are you going to take some time off, or are you heading right back in?
I think we're going to try to take off after this run. We're mostly going to shut down other than the DVD shoot, and then coming up with a game plan on how we want to do the next record. It's like, oh, go do another fan fun thing, do a Kickstarter thing. I'm like, I don't really want to do like the same thing back to back to back. It's cool to do it, but I think we can think outside the box a little bit and do something, maybe related, but not like let's just sign up and do another pledge thing. But yeah, I mean DVD and record, but not way off in the future.
Don't you have a DVD coming out beginning of 2015?
We're trying.
Okay.
We're trying to get that shot right now. The original plan was to do it in the last week of September, and funny, we're ready to roll, but our distribution company and the film company are squabbling over who gets the official rights to the DVD. So we need to let them hash out how it's all going to work.
Okay.
It doesn't. The funny thing is, it really has no effect on us whatsoever. We're kind of set here in our own little world, and those two have to figure out. Okay, I want worldwide distribution. Well, we have worldwide distribution, so you can't have it. That's kind of how the conversation's going down right now. It's just going to take us a little longer to get through what's going to work for them and what's not. Because it's not cheap to make one of these things.
No.
And I could totally understand. When we went into it, the company that we're talking with, I guess they weren't really paying attention that we have a distribution agreement in place, and we have a contract. So everything that has Sevendust name on it will go through the WIA chain, ILG, ADA, and it's funny. It's just who's got the writing on the back of the thing and who's in control of the project. Hopefully they'll be able to cohabitate and coexist in the same space and be able to figure out. Because if one guy's making a bunch of money and one guy pays for the whole thing, then that's not fair. But that's next. That's next on the agenda. And what's up, Chanzo?
Hey, y'all. I'm sorry.
You're all good.
Sorry.
We're just wrapping up.
Yep.
You cool?
Yeah, we're just about done here. Well, John, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I really appreciate it. Everybody, be sure to check us out on the web, www.frontrowreport.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And until the next time, this is the Front Row Report, where we keep you on the front lines of music.
Sweet.